over the last 25 years, what were the biggest innovations and impacts that we've had? That's an interesting question. At Metametrix, we're really pride ourselves at being, I would call, first thinkers, innovators, early adopters, whatever you want to call it. That's always been my passion. I always like doing unique things. I don't like doing just me too kind of things. And that's what really gets me going. Over the years, we had been developing a variety of tests, and my goal was to try to develop a laboratory that really was more of a full-service laboratory to look at nutrition and metabolism. And over the years, I talked to a lot of doctors, about the test results on their patients, and we would repeatedly, Dr. Lord and I would repeatedly get this question: is there something written about these tests that explains them and gives some references and whatnot? And we'd kind of go, well, no. We've written some, little interpretive guides and stuff. And after a while, Richard and I said, we really need to just write a book about all these tests that just explains why people do it and what they mean and all the literature behind it, because there's quite a bit of medical literature behind all these things and what they mean physiologically in terms of health. And so I said, well, Richard, why don't you just focus on that for a while and take all of our little interpretive guides and just kind of put them together. So he said, yeah, that wouldn't take too long. So he started doing that, and it actually turned into a major project that Richard and I got into for this book, Laboratory Evaluations in Molecular Medicine, which is what we really felt was a nice term for this type of medicine, because you're really dealing with the molecules of health and trying to modify their balances and whatnot. So that was kind of a nice term we liked. Unfortunately, over time, molecular medicine became more associated with the whole genomics revolution that developed, and that was the molecular medicine, and that's molecular too, with the genes and DNA and all that stuff. And the book was very successful. People loved the book, and every so often at meetings they'd come up and people would have all this stuff scribbled in the margins about notes that they would take about it, and we were very pleased to see that it was so successful. But then we began realizing that it was getting old and we really needed to do the second edition, which we entitled Laboratory Evaluations in Integrative Functional Medicine, which is now a more clearly defined field, we feel, that describes the type of medicine that is done using these types of tests. And so it's a much more expanded book. And it was interesting with the book now, we noticed our competitors, other laboratories, would start referring their clients to Metametrix to buy the book, because they would, again, to get the same questions. Hey, has there been anything written about this stuff that you guys are doing? And nobody had ever written something like this. So we basically wrote the book on this whole industry. And we're very proud of that. And it's a very good book, and it's continually being updated, and will probably come out with future editions too. So that's something that is very innovative about Metametrix, and it reminded me of a laboratory that was really the first major clinical laboratory in the country called Bioscience Labs. It's since been bought by other larger laboratories, but it was really the first clinical lab that developed after World War II. And it had a very similar history. In fact, there was a history written about bioscience in Clinical Chemistry, the journal, because it was so famous. And they also literally wrote the book. I used to enjoy going down to the bookstore downtown, Major's Medical Bookstore, and just kind of roaming around the bookstore looking for books. And one day I found in the used book section, actually, a big, thick manual about like that on clinical chemistry methods of all kinds that were not just these little automated methods that you put into these big machines these days, but they're all these different methods of measuring everything, nutrients and metabolites and whatnot. And it's written by Bioscience Labs. There's a big book like that, and I thought, boy, that's impressive. This is the first major laboratory in the country. They wrote the book on clinical laboratory testing, and that was really kind of a role model for me. in developing Metametrix. We want to be the innovators. We want to be the best. We want to write the book on this entire industry, and that's what we're doing. And we're very excited about that.